Taking a look at all the very latest from around the world and here at home now, it's the ITV News.
The warning: there could be a significant number of new Omicron variant cases within days. Nicola Sturgeon's warning comes as experts advising the Prime Minister suggest less social mixing or working from home should be considered. Tonight, the travel rules are tightened. Anyone flying in will have to provide a negative COVID test result. Also on the programme. Football's applause for Arthur Labinho Hughes, the touching tribute to the murdered 6-year-old. The race to restore power, thousands are still without it 8 days after Storm Arwen. And what an innings, remembering the world's oldest Test match cricketer, Eileen Ash, who's died at the age of 110.
This is ITV News with Gamal Fahnbulleh.
Good evening. In the last few minutes, the government has tightened the rules for flying into the country because of concerns about the Omicron variant. You'll have to provide a negative COVID test result before you arrive here from Tuesday. Earlier, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon warned she expects to see significantly more cases of the variant, and Boris Johnson's scientific advisers have suggested there should be less social mixing or working from home should be encouraged until we know more about the unfolding situation. Our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan, has the latest.
Christmas comes but once a year, COVID restrictions rather more often. But as we gear up for the party season, are the rules tough enough? The rush for booster jabs is on as the country waits to find out how much of the Omicron variant is here.
We have community transmission. The evidence suggests that is not yet widespread community transmission, but the nature of this virus, the transmissibility of it, means that I would expect to see more cases, perhaps significantly more cases, in the days ahead.
Boosters aside, opinions differ on how tight restrictions should be. The Omicron variant has the potential to cause serious public health problems, but it's too early to know if it actually will.
Whilst we are in the darkness, what we ought to do is do all we can not to get exposed to the virus, and therefore, as we have been saying, restrict person-to-person interactions and keep a lid on the spread of this virus.
In the latest Sage Minutes, scientists advise the Westminster government that people should reduce contacts, for example, working from home, that vaccine certificates could be used, and that arriving travellers should take 2 PCR tests, not 1. The government has just announced that from Tuesday, travellers will have to take a test before coming to the UK, but they've chosen only to trim freedoms in England, and at the Real Christmas Tree Farm in Hertfordshire, there's some support for that.
We've got to get on with our lives. We've faced 2 years of this now.
I think they're absolutely right, and they should protect the economy.
With this new variant, do you think they're being tough enough with the restrictions?
No, I haven't. Again, they've left it too late to do.
The scientists are only advising on how to limit the virus, whilst ministers also have to consider social and economic harms. But if the restrictions aren't tough enough, well, there could be political consequences too. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Hertfordshire.
Football fans and players across the country have paid tribute to 6-year-old Arthur Labinho Hughes as calls to review the lenient jail sentences given to the couple who killed him intensify. Arthur was a Birmingham City fan, and at matches today, he was applauded and remembered. Here's Lucy Watson.
Arthur Labinho Hughes was a child deprived of love. But this was a whole sporting community and his favourite club showing it to him. In the 6th minute of play, Birmingham City stopped their game entirely for fans to applaud the 6-year-old. In Coventry, they followed suit.
Well, this stadium reunited in paying tribute to little Arthur, who is on the big screen here.
Clubs getting together, I think it's brilliant. It's just what football's about, isn't it?
I think that's the best thing about football, though. Fans come together for this sort of thing.
It's good to pay tribute and have the recognition and raise the awareness. Hopefully nothing like it happens again.
Arthur endured unimaginable horrors at his home in Solihull at the hands of his stepmother Emma Tustin and father Thomas Hughes, convicted and sentenced for his murder last week.
There's a palpable sense of real loss and tragedy over this.
Today, outside that house, his MP called for their sentences to be reviewed by the Attorney General.
They were too lenient. My intention is to try to refer this to the unduly lenient sentencing scheme as soon as possible.
The spirit and smile of this 6-year-old have been recognised across the country. They're what his mother describes as his sparkle. Lucy Watson, ITV News.
As many as 5,000 people are still without power in the northeast of England and on the Scottish border, 8 days after Storm Arwen struck. The army has been deployed in many areas to help the vulnerable, but it could be until the middle of next week until all homes are reconnected to the grid. Ellie Pitt's report begins in Northumberland.
It's only community spirit powering Cramlington this weekend as soldiers check in on those waiting it out in their own homes. For others, this week has been an endless move from one hotel to another.
So I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I also have my father who lives with me, who's not in the best of health. In the hotels, it's been me, the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old in a double bed, and then my dad in a single bed, and obviously we're all in one room together.
In the North Pennines, there was finally some light at the end of the tunnel. Julia is warm again thanks to a generator down the street.
It was like getting into cold water going to bed. It was cold. If you went out of the room with fire, it was freezing.
But her son-in-law shares other residents' frustrations about how the emergency's been handled.
Somebody needs to be here on the ground sooner to see the devastation at some of these poles down and know that they couldn't get power on.
The power's back on in this corner of County Durham, but the problem isn't over. This generator is providing a quick fix, giving local residents heating, hot water and electricity once again. But at some point there'll have to be a switchover when the power lines are back up and running, and when that'll happen isn't clear yet. Today, Northern Power Grid apologised for the delay in dealing with the outage, but admitted it would be Wednesday before everyone has electricity again. Hello. Back in Northumberland, though, big life moments won't wait.
Well, you can't knock the British and English people back. Well, we've got lots of candles. I think it'll be very romantic.
While celebrations are in full swing for this happy couple, thousands of families face another Saturday night in darkness. Ellie Pitt, ITV News, County Durham.
In the US, the parents of a teenager suspected of a deadly school shooting have been arrested after going on the run. Their 15-year-old son, Ethan Crumbley, is accused of using his father's gun to shoot 4 classmates dead in Michigan on Friday. James and Jennifer Crumbley didn't show up in court to face charges of involuntary manslaughter. They're accused of ignoring warning signs before the shooting. And in Indonesia, 1 person has died and 41 others have suffered burns after a volcano erupted on the island of Java. Residents were filmed fleeing a giant cloud of ash which burst out of Mount Semeru. Witnesses said nearby villages were covered in debris, with thick smoke blocking out the sun and leaving them in total darkness. On to sport, Liverpool moved to the top of the Premier League thanks to a 1-0 win at Wolves with a stoppage-time winning goal from Divock Origi. This was the winning goal. It was only Chelsea's 2nd defeat of the season. Manchester City currently lead at Watford and will go top tonight if they win. Finally, the legendary Eileen Ash, who was the world's oldest former Test cricketer, has died.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Eileen.
These images were filmed on Eileen's 110th birthday just 5 weeks ago. She told ITV News that was the best day ever. Eileen made her England debut as a bowler in 1937 and retired from the sport in 1949. She went on to practice yoga right into her final year. Women's cricket has described her as a pioneer of the sport. And that's it for now. I'm back with the late news at 11:35. Until then, have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Today, many places could see temperatures start to soar, especially later on. Heinz Soup sponsors ITV National Weather.
A very good evening to you. Staying chilly through the rest of the weekend, windy for a time, and for some of us, wet and wintry in the next few hours, a combination of sleety snow.